Okay, so I want to work number 12 from 8.1 just because I've shown you how to plot these polar coordinates, but this goes a step further and it asks you to find two other polar coordinates that would be the same. And it also gives you the condition of one of your R values being positive and for the other one, your R value being negative. So let's look at this. So the first thing I'm going to do is plot this. And we know how to do that. So I always use the rectangular coordinate system. You can just use the polar graph if you want to. But when I'm looking at this, I'm thinking 3 pi over 4. So here I've got 1 pi over 4, 2 pi over 4, which would be pi over 2, and then 3 pi over 4, which is right here. And then I'm going to indicate that somehow this distance is 2. And like I said, you could certainly use your polar graphs to indicate that. And so that would be on that second circle. All right, so here is pi over 4, or I guess you could look at that as 135 degrees. And then my distance is 2. All right, so what this is asking for is an R value that's positive that gives me that same point. Well, an R value that's positive that gives me that same point, that's pretty easy to do because all you have to do is find a coterminal angle. So to find a coterminal angle, remember that you're just adding 360 degrees or 2 pi. So if I'm looking for a coterminal angle with 3 pi over 4, I'm just going to add 2 pi because that gives me a full rotation and I'm back where I started from. So let's get a common denominator, which is 4. So really I'm looking at 3 pi over 4 plus, and then that's going to be 8 pi over 4, which is 11 pi over 4. So another polar coordinate that would land me at this exact same point would be 2, because my distance isn't going to change. It's still going to be 2, and then 11 pi over 4. And you know, as long as you use the degree symbol, you could use degrees too. You could use 135 degrees plus 360 and get that angle there. Just make sure, like I said, that you use the degree symbol. All right, now I want to find one that's got a negative R value. So remember that if we're given a negative R value, we go to the direction of the angle, and then we go in the opposite direction, which basically means I need to be down here. That's where my angle needs to be, and then I need to go in that opposite direction to get to that point again. So now all you have to do is figure out, well, what would the angle for this point down here be? Well, you could look at it and think, well, that would be negative pi over 4 if you went clockwise. Or if you're not comfortable with doing that and you want all your angles to be positive, then just think about what this would be in the fourth quadrant. So here we are at pi over 4, 2 pi over 4, 3 pi over 4, 4 pi over 4, 5 pi over 4, 6 pi over 4, 7 pi over 4. So we're at 7 pi over 4. And I've got to go in the opposite direction to land on that point. So my R value is negative 2. So this gives me 2 more points that give me the same polar coordinate.